didn't seem to really change in the first half. There's really nothing being done on offense at that time. The team just looks lost on offense. I mean, that's all you can pretty much say about the offense in the first half. They just look lost. It sort of makes, Jack Crow look like a mastermind. For anybody with a long enough history there from Baylor, we all remember Jack Crow. I want to say thank you to Three Nations for keeping my focus on something other than this game in the first half. Really and truly, just reset the year. That's all we have to do at this point. Watch the team. Just not very great first half. Three Nations small batch. The West Coast IPA is legit. Some of the best beer I've had this year. I've had plenty of them today. There's a reason. This game. The wide game really doesn't work in the Big 12 when the defenses are built for speed. Maybe the O-line just can't block a simple twist. I'm not sure which one we're seeing, but about going back and watching, something's just not clicking. But for the second half, Ben Sims started looking like what we thought he would the past few years when he's battled some injuries, but he came in today, got 2 touchdowns. That's great for Ben. But I'm feeling no pain right now from this game, thanks to Three Nations. That's one of the best things in the world. Three Nations, big shout out for the tailgate, big shout out for the studio. I think everybody in this studio is now a big fan of Three Nations Brewing. It was 33-17, feeling like a little bit more like a ball game. And, we still ended up losing. Squirrel, unleash him, let him go. He looks great. Great touchdown run by him. Could have hit him on the 4th down and 3, but didn't happen. He was wide open and flat. Charlie tries to throw across the middle to Ben Sims, being covered by the All-American cornerback safety, Trevor Waring, for TCU. So you got a wide-open guy in the flat, or you throw it against the guy against the All-American. We saw what happened. The ball was batted down. That pretty much ended Baylor's chances. The defense tried to get the ball back to the offense. Didn't happen, but TCU ends up kneeling out the game. Then the team just needs to play a complete game. If they did play like they did in the first half, if they did in the second half, it would have been a competitive game, maybe even a win. But at this time, Baylor's now on a 3-game losing streak. And here we are going into the postgame show. Drake Toll, J.D. Piquel, call in 254-339-1122. Let's hear your thoughts on all that you saw.
Brewer for the equalizer. He wants it all on one play, and he's got it. Beautifully designed. Ben Sims, the tight end, into the end zone for the touchdown.
This is the SicEm365 radio postgame show, presented by Muscle Wise Nutrition, a coach-managed diet program to lose substantial weight, targeting fat while sparing muscle. Please email us at info365@musclewisenutrition.com, and one of our coaches will contact you promptly to get you set up for our free educational seminars. Lose weight by losing fat and sparing muscle. Start Muscle Wise today. Also sponsored by Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac at Imperial Drive exit off Loop 340 in Waco. People you can count on.
Brewer over the middle. He's got a man in stride. And walking into the end zone is Josh Fleeks with the touchdown.
Here's Drake Toll and J.D. Piquel.
And we are live in the Texas Farm Your Insurance Broadcast Center on the Muscle Wise postgame show on SicEm365 Radio. I'm Drake Toll alongside Baylor football alumni J.D. Piquel as Baylor drops 33-23 against TCU today. The Horned Frogs swamp the Bears on a scary Halloween night. We're live, the lines are open, and you can get in on the action at 254-339-1122.
I know all of Baylor Nation is just, in a word, frustrated, right? Frustrated and confused and just upset at the way this has all transpired thus far this season. Offensively, no sense of direction. Defensively, a letdown today. I think everyone's at a loss for words right now, Drake, but hopefully we can get into some of these calls and get into whatever those that are not lost for words have to say.
And that's the first thing we're going to do. Charlie Brewer today, 17 for 37, 203 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. We have Ronald from Houston calling in, and that's exactly what he wants to talk about. Ronald, you are on the air with SicEm365 Radio.
Yes, this is Ron. Do you think it's about a quarterback change? Because I think we personally need one. Because I know, Jacob Zeno, whatever, he's real cute. But what's the deal? I think we need a quarterback change. What's the deal?
Ron, I'll tell you this. Watching in the first half especially, I thought the exact same thing. I thought, what can this team do? Where is the ceiling with Charlie Brewer at quarterback?
Right.
I've been rooting for Brewer for the entire season to be the guy. But I think at this point in the game, do you start looking toward the future?
The thing that so first half, I'm with you. First half, Ronald, I'm with you. Quarterback change. And we're a big Charlie Brewer supporters here, but the way that he played in the first half definitely warrants a quarterback change, and honestly would be good for Charlie to have a quarterback change to help save him mentally, physically, probably a little bit emotionally. But in the second half, when the offense had more direction, where they're challenging vertically, not connecting quite as much vertically, but still being able to challenge vertically and have that defense off balance a little bit more, when they put him in position to succeed, he was, to a degree, successful. I mean, obviously they weren't blowing it out of the water, but to have him be able to have some positive output, I think you got to stick with Brewer a little bit longer. I saw enough to keep him around another week.
Ron, thanks so much for your call. I agree. I'm on the fence with that one more so than I was last week on whether or not Charlie Brewer is going to be able to get over a hump this season for Baylor, and if they can get over a hump on an offense from an offensive standpoint. Thanks again for your call. We got Richard. Richard Coker wants to talk about the game today. Richard, you're on SicEm365 Radio.
Hey guys, yeah, just overall game. You have to give it to Fat Pat and Texas Christian. They just dominated us first half. Offense just looked lost. O-line was bad. Charlie was bad. The defense didn't play as well. Some blown coverages, big runs. Charlie played better second half, but does that mean he should be the quarterback moving on? Probably not. I saw on Twitter, people who were, trying to stick with Charlie now are, calling for either, Gary or Zeno. But it's just, it was just a very sloppy game. Probably, one of the worst performances, like offense, defense, special teams collectively. One of the worst performances I've seen out of, Baylor in a while. So it's going to, what happens from here? Does Charlie get replaced? This team could be capped at, 2 or 3 wins maybe. West Virginia beat Kansas State. Can we beat Kansas State? Yeah, but there's a whole lot to improve on.
And I think that second half, for me at least, saved Charlie Brewer's job in my mind. They were able to have a direction offensively, and that's something they haven't had until that half this season. Obviously, the Kansas game, Kansas is Kansas, but against, competitive opponents, that was the first time we had seen this Baylor offense really have an east and west attack, whether it be throwing the ball, running the ball. Like, they had a direction, both metaphorically and literally. And so, for me, it's a matter of, okay, is Charlie the problem, or is it a schematic problem? And the entirety of the season, I think everyone's been saying it's a Charlie problem, right? And that's fair to say. He's the guy who's, if you're quarterback, you're the GOAT or you're the hero every single game. And so up until now, he's been the GOAT. It wasn't obviously the hero today by any stretch of the imagination, but to have him be able to have some success in the second half is enough for me to say, okay, let's explore that a little more. Let's unpack that a little more and see if we can't get something going with more direction.
Thanks so much for that call. I think to a large extent where Charlie Brewer is right now is kind of dictated by the play calling is what it seems like. Yeah. We try to get a little bit gutsier there toward the end of the first half, and it pays off with a big play, sets up a touchdown. In the second half, you have a few situations where it's put up or shut up for the Baylor offense, and Charlie delivered. Yeah. Charlie himself delivered, made some great passes and plays, but I think in another aspect of that is getting Squirrel Williams more involved in the game and what that did to open things up and give Brewer more options. We got a couple more callers on here, Jack and Josh. Josh, thanks for calling. Jack, you too. Josh, hang with us. And Jack, you are on the air with SicEm365 Radio.
Gentlemen, I'm kind of at a loss of words like a lot of other people. I've seen Baylor play some great games. I've seen Baylor play some pretty bad games. And then there was this.
Yeah.
It's nothing against this team. It's not against our guys. But to see how bad and not consistent we were in the first half, and in the end of the third quarter through the fourth quarter, being able to figure out a rhythm, and part of this is kind of on the offensive coaching staff. It shouldn't take a coaching staff an entire half to figure out how the opposing defense works.
Yeah.
I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Jack, thanks so much first and foremost for calling. Every week we love to take your call and hear from you. Always solid insight. So really, I think that's first and foremost. Thanks for that. On the other side, I think you got a great point from an offensive perspective, a defensive perspective, and a special teams perspective today, especially in the first half. I think Baylor fans everywhere were watching this game just in surrender Cobra form.
Surrender Cobra.
I mean, there was nothing in that first half, especially the first even, say, 27 minutes, that looked remotely good. Not statistically, not the eye test. Nothing that Baylor was doing was working from an offensive or defensive standpoint. I think I give the defense a bit of a free pass on that in saying that the offense put them in tough spots. Our defense was on the field a ton because the offense couldn't do anything. So that really put those defensive guys in a bad position. And then from an offensive standpoint, it just seemed like Baylor could not figure out anything in the first half. Finally, some success late. You come back in the second half and at least give yourself a shot to win the ball game. But in the end, it was too little, too late. Josh, thanks for holding on the line for us. You are on SicEm365 Radio.
Yeah, so I just wanted to start. It just brutal first half today. It was tough to watch, and I guess that's kind of the same thing for most of our games this year besides Kansas. Just slow starts, and I'm not blaming on the players. Like, I understand COVID and everything. It's been a tough season for everybody, and I can't imagine the people in the program. But I'm just wondering what y'all think the problem is, because to me it seems like slow starts on offense, slow starts on defense. Now, I want to know what y'all think the problems are on this team and what the bright spots are looking forward.
Well, the obvious answer there is the offense, right? The offense sends the direction. We talk about that. I feel like we beat it over and over again on the head every single week. Is like, hey, the offense needs to figure out what they want to do. It's not even what can they do. It's what do they want to do. Today, second half, power run game worked with Squirrel Williams. Vertical attack worked sparingly. But even the fact that they tried opens up so much else for this offense to do. You were giving the defense a little bit of a free pass today, like you mentioned. I am going to be not so lenient. 247 yards allowed on the ground against TCU today. That hurts. And I think something that we also should mention, everyone across Baylor Nation is thinking this. It hurts a little bit more because it's TCU, right? You never want to lose to little brother.
No, the rivalry on Halloween, it's the big Halloween game. Everybody's excited, going to go, getting, holiday, and then you've got the matchup where it's kind of make or break for both of these teams. Obviously, it's still early in the season, and we're going to get into that later in the show, where you go from a Charlie Brewer standpoint, especially only being 4 games in. But you've got the hype. People are excited to see Baylor play this week, to hopefully win this week, but a loss is just demoralizing to the root of the program. And seeing how they respond is going to be super interesting. So I think if you're going to try to pinpoint something this week where things didn't go well, you got to pinpoint mostly the entire game.
Oh,
just
without a doubt.
Not a lot of really positive takeaways, especially in the first half when it mattered, because TCU jumped out, set the tone, and when it was 30-0, people were turning TVs off. People were leaving McLean Stadium. People didn't care anymore. And that's a dangerous game sitting now at 1-3 early on in this season. Got Matt DC, talk to us, bro. SicEm365 Radio.
Guys, how's it going?
Going on. Hey, been a lot better, but could be worse.
It's going, Matt.
Oh, you damn right it's been a lot better. It's been a lot better when a team doesn't have to get down 30-0 to actually show some effort in the first half.
Right.
That was an absolute embarrassment today.
Yeah.
Complete 100% embarrassment.
Yep.
You come off the situation earlier in this week with, Love and Ebner too, and you think, okay, now is a chance for this team to come together, facing some adversity not only on the field but off the field. What can they do to respond from that? And I, for one, am disappointed with how things look today.
Yeah, and pressure either build diamonds or burst pipes. And today, for the majority, continued to and repeatedly burst Baylor's pipes.
Matt,
that was the most frustrating thing for me to see how they crumbled under that pressure.
Another one of those guys who calls in every week. Matt, thanks so much for your call. Michael, we're going to take this call into a break. Michael, you're on with SicEm365 Radio.
Hi, guys. New listener here. I think your show is terrific. Just a couple, just some key takeaways from what I saw from the game. One, obviously it was a slow start that just put us behind the 8 ball for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Offensive line did not show up to play. The defense gave us some big plays early.
Yeah.
That was basically the game before it started. And then you look at the lack of imaginative play calling. I'm looking at you, Larry Fedora. Roddy Gilmore from ESPN mentioned this several times. When are they going to switch up the play calling. Charlie Brewer was basically just a statue, just a standing statue there, waiting to get back. And he kept commenting, when are they going to just either roll out or just switch up in general. And I think that goes on the play calling, and it'll be interesting to see within the next few weeks what we've talked about this already with Fedora, but what his changes are for the system, basically with the personnel they have right now.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
The last thing is you have to keep. I know people are calling for Charlie Brewer, impossibly getting replaced, but you're looking at a senior starter.
Yep.
He's been with us through the thick and thin. He's proven himself in the Big 12. I say you have to keep him. Maybe if you have another slow start from him or basically another blowout, you try to get one of those guys in, either Bohannon or Zeno. But I think it's just a little bit jumping the gun a little bit, trying to make a change for Brewer. So thanks a lot, guys. I'll keep listening, and thanks for letting me call.
Yeah,
appreciate you.
Thanks so much for listening, Michael. JD, thoughts on that?
Well, Paul said it during the game. Paul Colleen was watching the game with us. He said, if Gary Bohannon and Jacob Zeno aren't in the game at this point after what we've seen from Charlie Brewer, that has to tell you something about what Charlie Brewer does in practice compared to those guys. So
right.
I think Charlie Brewer obviously is not nailing it. He's not hitting out of the park, but he literally was put into the very worst position to succeed. You have a lot of guys gone. You have an all-new staff. You have an all-new system, and you have really high expectations, which just makes for a horrible mess if you're Charlie Brewer.
Here's where I have to disagree with you. Baylor, like we said last week, is not the 2020, Lamborghini, but they're still a 2016 Nissan Maxima.
Sure.
There is a lot here for Charlie Brewer with Munoz, with Larry Fedora, who made North Carolina when he was the head coach over there. There's a lot that Charlie Brewer has the keys to be successful. It's not like there's nothing around him. Look at Ebner, look at Lovett, look at even Squirrel, who we saw today, and then Tyquan Thornton, who's played so well last year. It's almost as if we're not using him enough, and I know we're not. But I got to think my confidence last week in Charlie Brewer is at an 8 out of 10 because he's your guy. He's number 2, number 3 on every career stat list for a Baylor quarterback out there. But now that 8 is steadily dropping to a 6. And in the first half, that 8 was about a 3, about a 3.
I'm with you.
I think there's enough around Charlie Brewer. There's got to be a better performance, but at the same time, is Baylor doing what's best for Charlie from an offensive standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, a play calling standpoint? I don't know if the answer to that is yes. We're going to take that to a break. You are on the Muscle-Wise SicEm365 Baylor post-game show. We'll be right back after this.
A group of over 30 physicians in Central Texas became frustrated seeing patients fail at losing weight themselves. They opened Muscle-Wise Nutrition. We've seen too many patients suffer from complications of obesity. Patients who have tried countless do-it-yourself diets, which often results in 25% of the weight they lose coming from muscle breakdown and muscle loss. We needed another approach, so we opened Muscle-Wise Nutrition. This is a coach-managed diet program to lose substantial weight, targeting fat while sparing muscle. Dieters are seen weekly by a coach who performs detailed body composition analysis. Please email us at SicEm365 at MuscleWiseNutrition.com, and one of our coaches will contact you promptly to get you set up for our free educational seminars. Lose weight by losing fat and sparing muscle. Start Muscle-Wise today. Contact us at SicEm365 at MuscleWiseNutrition.com.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Engel with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like instant issue debit cards free at all of our banking centers, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
At Baylor University, students find their place to shine. They're faithful friends and inspirational leaders. They're championship teammates and independent thinkers. They're on the cutting edge of high tech and in the halls of history. If you want to make the world a brighter place, you can. And if you want to shine in your own way, you can. The spark you need is already inside you. Bring it to Baylor, where lights shine bright.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio. Here's Drake Toll and J.D. Pickell.
Welcome back into the Texas Farm Bureau Broadcast Center. You're with myself, Drake Toll, alongside Baylor football alum J.D. Pickell on Central Texas' #1 caller-driven digital radio hour, this Muscle-Wise Baylor postgame show on SicEm365 Radio. Get in on the action. Call us, text us, 254-339-1122. A demoralizing loss on Halloween Day for Baylor. Final score, TCU 33, Baylor 23. The Bears end the game on a 23-3 run, but that's not what mattered. What mattered most is at the end of the first quarter, TCU was up 20-0. They had 8 first downs compared to Baylor's 1. Baylor had 9 total rushing yards, 12 passing yards, one of the worst first quarters that Baylor has seen in a long, long time.
That's sort of the thing. You don't get credit for trying in college football. In college sports, there is no moral victories. There is no brownie points. It is, did you win? Did you lose? And what did you learn? And at this point, I don't know that we learned a whole lot about Baylor besides, hey, going east and west doesn't work.
I think it's a weird way to put it. Did we learn what we already knew? Did we just reaffirm what we already knew?
They're blending together, right?
Exactly.
They're all starting to look the same, right? Like they just look the same. The scores are different, but they look the same.
It's a broken record. They look the same, and it's not a good thing.
I'm slowly dying
It's the
inside.
definition of insanity. It's let's do the same thing over and over again and hope that it works out, except this time we won't have Charlie Brewer throw the ball 43 times because that didn't work out
It's
too
going to be
well.
37 instead.
It's going to be 37, but we're only going to complete 17 of those, and we're going to see if that works out a little bit better, and it didn't. We got Eric on the line. Eric, you're on with SicEm365 Radio.
Hey there, guys. Yeah, we got 2 Baylor alum here from 2016, and
love it.
You know, it's just really piss poor, to see these folks play.
You need to give Zeno a chance.
So where I am with hit me with it. What's that?
Zeno our man?
So let me tell you this, Eric, Anthony, thank you guys for your call. Jacob Zeno went 2 for 7 in the Big 12 championship game. You got a very, very small sample size of what Zeno can do. Is he the future? Maybe. He's a solid quarterback. He's not bad. He's got the size. He looks solid. He passes the eye test. But I don't think that Jacob Zeno is your answer right now because Gary Bohannon is your second string. And I tell you what, Dave Aranda, Larry Fedora, Jorge Muniz, those guys are getting paid so much more money than I am to put Gary Bohannon as the second string guy and having Jacob Zeno at third string. That alone says something about Zeno not necessarily being ready yet.
Gosh, I love you. I love you. I love that you said that. Jacob Zeno is something and someone that Baylor Nation should be so excited about because he's going to be so fun to watch. He's going to throw a lot of touchdowns. He's going to win a lot of games. He is going to be a stud for this program for a very long time to come. The only thing is that time is going to come a little farther down the line than a lot of Baylor Nation wants to think. Charlie's our guy. Make no mistake about it, Charlie's our guy. Now, do I think there's something that we could benefit from in terms of taking some things off his plate? Maybe put Gary in there more in some Wildcat packages, as long as it doesn't interrupt Charlie's flow in the game. Like, if Charlie gets in a rhythm, let him play, let him run. But he is our guy, undoubtedly. But I'm all for maybe taking a few things off his plate and letting him have a little more simpler game plan.
Eric and Anthony, you guys are back. Let's head to you. What do you got?
Let's do it. So sorry about that. Yeah, so we're back, and, I think that Charlie is our guy. I agree. I forget which one of you guys tweeted about it, but one of you guys mentioned it's not Charlie's fault. It's not Fedora's fault. It lies on Aranda. At one point when we were, 21 points plus down, at what point, do we take Charlie out? And it worked out at the end of the day. I like seeing a chance at, being two drives back. But at the end of the day, what do we do to actually seal the deal?
Well, I think at some point in time you go to, so I don't know if the place exists somewhere in the country where you can rent an offensive line that you can just install for a week or two. Maybe, what can you do with an offensive line that lacks really solid experience not only when it matters, but solid experience where they've looked more than competent?
And this is a group that is still gelling.
What do you got there?
For Charlie, because it sucks for Charlie because we kept putting it on him.
Right.
But really, no one focused on our O-line. No one focused on it.
Yeah.
It was all take Charlie out. And really, was that really the case? Charlie throwed some good passes. He got, let's be honest, TCU defense was hot tonight.
Yeah. I agree with you, especially early. Eric, thanks so much for your call. Love hearing from you. And I think you make a great point that it's not all Charlie Brewer. We put a lot of stuff on what he does, and your quarterback is typically the bell cow guy that's going to get you there. But at the same time, you got to have more than just a few pieces around him. And I mentioned it earlier. You've got your Tyquan Thorntons that are really good. Yep. You've got your Ebners, Lovitz, and even Squirrel, who showed that he's got a lot of talent, a lot of skill, and a lot of upside. But you also have to take a look at the offensive line and then juxtapose that with Charlie Brewer being top 3 all-time in every single quarterback statistic ranking in Baylor history. It's not that Charlie Brewer is incompetent by any means whatsoever, and Jacob Zeno is not the answer right now. It is, is Baylor putting Charlie Brewer in the best positions possible, and does he have an offensive line that can get us there?
Absolutely. And it's also a consistency thing. Like, it's by no means is Charlie running for his life every single play, but when you have to when you have to improvise a little more than you want to, that gets to a psyche of a quarterback. I mean, that makes you see ghosts. That makes you play a little bit quicker than you want to. You play out in front of yourself, and that's just such a negative thing, especially at the quarterback position. Nobody's going to be 100% with perfect protection. So to have less than perfect protection and have a quarterback who maybe isn't a dynamic pocket passer, all those things are just marrying together to make it look bad on Charlie. But don't get it twisted. This is a full offensive unit that has a lot of holes along the offensive line.
Got more calls coming in. We got one text on the open text line, Riverbend Liquor text line. We have Matt saying, Jonathan saying, give Squirrel the nut. And boy, you can say that again. I'll retweet that all day long.
And then once they started to give him the nut consistently, you saw the dam eventually have a few cracks in it. You saw him riff off some. I mean, he was averaging 9.5 yards a carry at one point, and it was that power play. It wasn't like they were doing anything revolutionary. They were just pulling their guard and their opposite end tackle, and I think it was guard in the center. But either way, power scheme. And Squirrel was shaking and baking and getting downhill in a hurry.
Got Tim Longoria is on the lines. Tim calling in about the Baylor TCU game. 254-339-1122. You can get in on the action. Tim, you are live on SicEm365 Radio.
What's up, Drake and JD? Guys, it always sucks to lose a game, and especially on Halloween. But, I'm not crazy to think that we showed some good signs of life. Am I crazy to think that,
Well,
talk to me a little bit more about that.
I don't think you're crazy. Crazy would be a really strong word there. I think maybe you're not. The first half, you said that, then yes, you'd be crazy.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that was most frustrating about it was that it came late in the game. It was like, where was this on the first 2 quarters of the game? Because there was a sense of direction. I think the whole thing that we've been asking for from Baylor is give us an identity offensively. Give us a sense of what it is that you want to do with the offensive football. And they just did not have that at all in the first half and did just too little too late in the second half, which makes it even more frustrating, in my opinion.
Tim, thanks for your call, getting on the action, 254-339-1122. You also can give your thoughts on the Baylor-TCU game. Final score, TCU 33, Baylor 23, a rout. The score did not show what the actual gameplay was today, as Baylor went down 30-0, and they weren't able to come back and pull things off in dramatic fashion. In the end, we have T-Rex. T-Rex, you are on the air with SicEm365 Radio. This should be good.
Hey, gentlemen. So, one of my favorite things is it's never over until it's over, right?
Yeah.
Well, we fought and we worked hard today, but I have a fear, right? And my fear is simple, that the justification, and let me preface this, I love every single one of these players.
Yep.
All right? Keep that in mind. I'll ride or die with all of them. But I'm afraid that the justification for keeping the QB1 as it is and keeping Brewer in the game is that he almost made a comeback. The issue with that argument, and the issue I've always had with that argument that he's a gamer and he's a late game quarterback, is why in the hell are we in that situation?
Yeah.
That's my question. And I feel like people look past that, or they're just blind to it because they want to support him, and I want to support him also. And if he's a quarterback out there on the field, I'm going to cheer for him and I'll go to war for him. But we got to stop being in that situation. We got to figure it out. That's all I know. I'll be in Ames, Iowa next week. I hope to God I'm not freezing in 10 degrees and watching something worse than this, but I'm going to be there because I'm ride or die. But let's figure it the hell out, Baylor. All right, that's all I got to say.
T-Rex, thanks so much for your call. One of the best ones out there.
He is a lifer.
I mean, if there's somebody that's passionate about Baylor athletics, it's that guy. Thanks so much again for your call. Bad news for you, 2 words, Brock and Purdy. The game in Ames next week, you probably will be doing the very thing that you were hoping you won't be. Yes. So Charlie Brewer gets you to a point where he plays really well late today and drags Baylor back into a game where it looked like they had no business being remotely close in early on. But I think you make a great point. How did you get there?
Right.
Somebody had to get you there into that hole where you're down 30-0. And we disagreed on this, but I don't think it was Baylor's defense that was at fault there in the first half for the most part, because it was the offense going 3 and out and having the ball for all of, a minute and a half, it seemed like, in that first quarter. And Baylor's defense is right back out there having to put up with the TCU offense led by a very good quarterback in Duggan. So Baylor's offensive woes led to a lot of defensive struggles, and who's the man that leads that offense? It's Charlie Brewer.
I would say even more so, though, you rally around a guy like Brewer in the fourth quarter. You see Charlie's tenacity, you see his competitive edge, and that gets you fired up. That gives your defense life. That gives those linebackers a little bit more juice when they're coming to fill in the hole. Anytime you're allowing 5.5 yards a carry defensively, you are probably not going to win the football game, and that's just the fact of the matter. And that's what Baylor gave up today on defense. And so for Charlie, it's like, yeah, we hate that we have to come from behind. We hate that, we ask these things of you in the fourth quarter, but at the same time for Baylor, that's your guy. I mean, when I'm down 10 points in the fourth quarter, I want the ball in 5's hands.
Dance with the one that brung you there.
I mean, how many game-winning drives does he have? Like 7? He has 7 coming from behind. I mean,
I get it. Dance with the one that brung you there. But at the same time, what if while you're driving to prom, you get in a car wreck? Then you still have to dance with the person that you're there with, but the whole night you're just like, I got an offender bender. It's all you can think about, where you got to realize that, man, Charlie Brewer is kind of the reason you're in that fender bender situation. You can't have a great prom night. You can't have a great Halloween night because you're down 30-0 and the offense can't put it together.
I'll just say this. 21 other players have a job to do in addition to what Charlie Brewer is bringing. Obviously, the quarterback, most important position on the field, and obviously the most exposed position on the field in terms of when you see their mistakes, when you see their victories. But there's 21 other people on that field that need to do their job to help Charlie not be in a deficit come the fourth quarter.
Baylor, second half, you had the comeback, the possible comeback. 23-3 is the run. That's the total of the run that Baylor went on to finish out the game. TCU late was able to hold the Bears on 4th down, and that's what did Baylor in the end. But you also saw a sign of life.
Yeah.
So on the other hand, we talked about Charlie Brewer. Yes, him and the offense are the guys that got you to that 30-0 hole. On the other side of things, they did look really solid when it, quote unquote, mattered late with their shot to come back and win the game.
What I loved, though, too, is also the game was at that. I mean, you're down 30-0. The game is by most estimations out of reach, right?
Yes.
Realistically, most It's probably
unless you're Baylor against Oklahoma, but we won't go back there.
Right. Yeah, that's another a dark topic. But the fact that Baylor started to cut it loose, I mean, they were willing to experiment a little bit.
Right.
I mean, they got out of their comfort zone. They got out of what obviously hadn't been working for the last 2.5 games. And so the fact that they were able to open it up, in fact, they were open to some more creative nuances with that offense. That was really encouraging. So I think you have to be pleased with the fact that the coaching staff took a step back and said, okay, this obviously hasn't worked for the last 2.5 games. Let's try something new. And the fact that there was even a little bit of success, I think that could be promising going forward.
Call, text 254-339-1122, the Muscle-Wise Baylor post-game show on SicEm365 Radio. This text says, hi, my name is Xavier. Been a diehard Baylor fan for a long time. Today was one of the worst games that I've seen in my lifetime. Wow. Is it a lack of offensive knowledge that is keeping the worst QB we have on the field, or is our staff just completely unwilling to let young guys play like Zeno or Bohannon? You can't tell me that Charlie Brewer is the best QB on the team. Nope, no way. I'll say this. Those guys that are putting Charlie Brewer out there, we've said it already once this show, are making a lot more money than we are to put Charlie Brewer out there and put Baylor in the best position possible. I think if it was true that Charlie Brewer is not the man for the job right now, he wouldn't be out there.
Also, there's definitely there's nobody on that Baylor staff that doesn't want to play someone because they're young. I mean, Gary Bohannon has been someone that's had snaps, that's had experience in this program. I think he's a junior, if I'm not mistaken. Sophomore, redshirt sophomore. He's been in the program for 3 years. So he's been around.
Redshirt sophomore next year, he's going to be around, right.
So this is not his first time, being a part of this program. So all this to say, there is no, seniority that Charlie is getting to be in his role. I mean, there's too much money. Like you said, these guys are making too much money to give Charlie the starting spot just because he's, quote unquote, the upperclassman.
So people are calling for Jacob Zeno. Oh my gosh, we want Jacob Zeno. He's our quarterback. Listen to the stat line. 9 for 18 in his career.
Okay.
223 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Aside from 2 very fine passes in the Big 12 championship game.
Great throws.
No one would be asking for Charlie Brewer's job to be overtaken by Jacob Zeno. 2 great throws when they mattered. That's awesome. I'll give him a ton of credit, all the credit in the world. But I'm not necessarily looking at, hey, what can Gary Bohannon do for us right now? Or, hey, what can Jacob Zeno do for us? I think there are times today, especially, where in my mind I'm going, oh my gosh, it's a broken record. Can we get something else out there? But even then, I haven't seen anything out of Bohannon. I haven't seen anything out of Zeno, that make me think, okay, these guys are ready to take over Charlie Brewer's job. And I still think you got Kyron Drones coming in. Yeah. He might be the next man. Why are we so married to Gary Bohannon and Jacob Zeno? Why are we so married to that idea right now?
I think the idea is obviously appealing because we saw, like you said it perfectly, those 2 passes in the Big 12 championship game have everyone so excited. I mean, how could you not be excited? The guy played lights out in those. I mean, he threw 2 lights out passes. He didn't necessarily play lights out.
Yeah, and he went 0 for 4 on the other 4 passes.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, there's still, I think, a lot of growth to be had. And if you're a Baylor fan, you should be ecstatic that you have Jacob Zeno on your roster and that he doesn't have to play this year, that you have someone like Charlie Brewer that can come in and play and still be somewhat effective to a degree. I mean, he's not, like we said, he's not blowing it out of the water. They're not obviously having the success they want to see on the field necessarily, but to be able to sit behind a guy like Brewer to bake a little bit longer in this system, that's going to be huge for Baylor down the line, and be happy that Zeno has that luxury right now.
And Zeno, 8 carries in his career for -9 yards. We saw he's decently one-dimensional as it sits right now, and I'm sure he'll develop, but Charlie Brewer is still your guy. We got another caller on the air, UT Mike. UT Mike wants to talk about Baylor's 10-point loss to TCU. What's up?
UT Mike! Guys, are y'all watching the game? No, not the Baylor game.
We are a little busy right now.
That was over when it started.
We are currently preoccupied.
The Texas game.
Yes, Texas is on in the studio.
Yes. Listen, if there's any way that Aranda can throw in the white towel for the rest of the year, that would be great. Like, is there some way that y'all can tap out, like, blame Corona? Can we do that?
In the same way that we can't rent an offensive line, no, I don't think we can tap out for the rest of the season. But yes, it seemed almost as if 3 weeks ago people were throwing that option around for some odd reason.
They need to go ahead and tap out, start over. Hey, listen, do you think Dave got in over his head, maybe? I mean, I don't know. It just looked like The whole first half. 30-0. That's wow.
Short answer, no. Long answer, also no. In the middle of a pandemic year, especially when you've got a new head coach and a new staff and a whole lot of things to move around, Dave Aranda is the guy that's controlling the defense right now. And I think Baylor fans would all agree you couldn't be happier with how well the defense has played so far. I don't think Aranda's in over his head, especially in year number 1 being as odd as it is. And I really don't think he's in over his head when you're installing your offense via Zoom call. But thanks so much for your call, UT Mike. I'm glad during an overtime game where UT and Oklahoma State are squaring off, the best thing you have to do is call in the Baylor postgame show.
So I will say this. My dad and I text quite a bit throughout the game. We exchanged some analysis, some commentary, a lot of good jokes, a lot of good stuff going on between those exchanges. One thing he said is Aranda is essentially the equivalent of a guy at the poker table who just got dealt horrific cards, got dealt awful cards. And he's sitting at the table, and at this point now, he's 1 in 3.
Yeah.
And everybody knows you have bad cards. So everybody knows you are at this point effectively bluffing, and he's just trying to do his best to get through the rest of the way. So at this point, you're taking it one at a time, even more so than you were before. But I mean, the pandemic is a very real thing to talk about. Like, this is by no means a cop-out. You try to install a whole new system in substantially less time than you would have had.
Right.
You lose a lot of talent on defense. You try to put in a whole new system on offense with guys that are still trying to get together and gel. That's crucial. That's very, very real. He's not in over his head. The guy just has horrible cards he's been dealt.
Drake Toll alongside JD Piquel and the Muscle-Wise postgame show on SicEm365 radio. Call or text us at 254-339-1122. We're going to take it into a break. Baylor falls today to TCU, 33-23 the final. We'll be right back with our final segment and we'll take your calls at, again, 254-339-1122.
Have you tried a do-it-yourself program to lose weight? You may not know that in a typical do-it-yourself program, a quarter of the weight you lose is due to muscle breakdown and loss. With COVID harming obese and overweight patients, being at ideal body weight is more important now than ever. Over 30 physicians in Central Texas, tired of seeing patients fail at losing weight themselves, opened Muscle-Wise Nutrition. This is a coach-managed weight loss program that targets fat and spares muscle. The 4 Muscle-Wise locations have taken off over 19,000 pounds from Texas dieters in the last few years. The combination of coaching and weekly body composition analysis to target the fat loss are the keys to success. The coaches teach you how to eat and live a healthy lifestyle. Email SicEm365 at musclewisenutrition.com today, and the coaches will contact you about their free educational seminars. Do not wait. Email today and start MuscleWise at SicEm365 at musclewisenutrition.com.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. And this football season, you need to stop by on game day for curbside pickup or stop by their tent next to SicEm365 at Brazos Parking for your pregame refreshment. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com.
With more than 160,000 alumni worldwide and counting, the Baylor family is growing. And through the university's expanded Baylor alumni program, the family is growing closer. With hundreds of local volunteers planning events in cities and towns around the country, you can gather with fellow Bears no matter where you are. So, get connected, get something started, get involved, and make plans to get together with Baylor alumni. Visit us at baylor.edu/alumni.
Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, specializing in diagnosis and treatment of any and all sport-related injuries, celebrating over a decade of service to Central Texas. They tackle all surgical and non-surgical problems that arise from an active lifestyle. Trust the doctors that Baylor trusts, and when injuries sideline you, don't wait for Monday. Join us at 8:30 on Saturday mornings for a post-game injury evaluation clinic. Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. We get you back in the game.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio. Here's Drake Toll and J.D. Pickell.
We're back in the Petty Clinic Low T studio. Myself, Drake Toll, alongside Baylor football alum J.D. Pickell on Central Texas' #1 digital radio hour, the Muscle-Wise Baylor postgame show on SicEm365 Radio. Call us, text us, get in on the action. 254-339-1122. Baylor falls again today. Drops to 1-3 overall after a 33-23 loss in which they went down 30-0 in the first half against rival TCU.
Showed some signs of life, though. A little bit of life there at the end, enough to give people the hope for next week. That's going to keep me coming back next week, Drake. I don't know about you, but that's enough to get me through the next week.
I am going to come back. Yes, I will be back here next week,
Good.
but it will probably look uglier than it did this week against an Iowa State squad that's looked really solid. Iowa State's good. I'm worried about that game, and that pulls me into this. We had one of the texts that came in on the Riverbend Liquor and Wine text line talking about the outlook. Where does Baylor go from here? We get that question almost every
Good
week.
question.
And the answer stays about the same. There's not very, where do you go from here? The outlook is not very bright at all this season.
Right, and I think you have to make it even a shorter season than it was before. Like, you have to take it was one game at a time. Now it's, hey, take it one quarter at a time. When that becomes too overwhelming, take it one series at a time. For Baylor, you figured out something that works a little bit at the end of that game. And we talked about it even prior to this game. Hey, have a vertical passing game. Have a vertical threat of a passing game. Even if you're not connecting, throw the ball deep even a little bit to keep the defense honest. Commit to a running style. They had a power running game that was really effective with Squirrel Williams there at the end of the game. So you have something that sort of worked. You got into a rhythm with your players. It is the Jimmies and the Joes as well as the X's and the O's. And when those meet together in a perfect harmony, it's a beautiful thing. So in that way, I would say let's build upon what worked in the end of this game.
Okay. I still don't think you're there yet. You see glimpses of it, but when will it become extremely cohesive?
Right.
Maybe against Texas Tech later this year. They've shown a couple of signs of life, maybe even more so than Baylor has. You already knocked out Kansas, so your guaranteed win is off the books.
And, yeah.
Whatever's next, Baylor will not be favored in any game moving forward that I see on this schedule. I don't see them they'll be dogs, basically. They'll be dogs the rest of the way. I think they may be okay with that, but Baylor going 1-8 is a legitimate possibility right now. That wouldn't be surprising.
And that's too overwhelming. You can't look at the whole season right now after a loss like this and say, man, we're going to just
But you can do it after 3 losses
this. That's not fair to say. That's very much not fair to say.
It is after 1-3, though, is it not?
Well, that's a loser attitude if you're going to do that. I don't think that's fair to say.
Or is it a realist attitude?
I think it's a loser attitude. I think if that were the case, then why even roll the ball out and play? If that was the case, there would be no reason to even play the game.
Right.
And so I think for Baylor, you maybe aren't super optimistic going forward. Maybe you're not feeling ecstatic about your chances, but at the same time, that's not for you to worry about. You just got to take it one play at a time, one series at a time, if you want to even stay remotely positive. Otherwise, you're going to drown and go head underwater.
Yes, stay positive. That's fine. Expect to win every week. That's the goal, especially if you're on the team. But from someone looking outside in, that perspective, you can say Baylor might go 1-8, probably going to go 1-8, and accept that. Granted, there's still a lot to be decided on the football field. There's 6 games, 5 games left this season. But the outlook of those 5 games is not very bright. From a team perspective, yes, let's go win those 5.
Right.
But from this perspective, 1-8 is on the table, and it's probably what you're going to look at. It's probably what you're staring down the barrel of as it sits.
I think it's just too overwhelming to look at the whole season. A lot of ball to be played, a lot of things that can happen.
We've played half the season so far.
Right.
What is it going to take to flip? Not only do you have to flip the switch, you got to hit the breaker right now.
Right, and I think that's the thing. You just got to start with the next week. With the next week, you can't look at the whole season. That's way too much. You got to take it in smaller, more digestible pieces.
From a team standpoint,
right?
Yes.
I think even as a whole for Alabama, Alabama's a bad example.
Where are we going with this?
Okay, so my point is anything can happen, right? So 2 weeks ago, Clemson has Trevor Lawrence playing quarterback, right? This week, throw a freshman in there, have to have a crazy comeback effort. 3 weeks ago, they were probably looking at that Notre Dame game in a very different way. So all that's to say, that's maybe the more roundabout way to say my point, but the point being, it's sports, anything can happen. Let's not count the eggs before they hatch.
Anything can happen.
Right.
Yes. We don't have to count the eggs, but I won't be surprised if Baylor goes 1-8 this season, and I don't think that I'm a pessimist for saying that because they won't be favored down the stretch, and the only game that seems remotely winnable looking forward is Texas Tech. We've got text coming in on the Riverbend Liquor and Wine text line. O-line has problems, yes. Play calling was horrendous in the first half, yes. But the quarterback must take what is available, and he missed almost everything in the first half. I think that right there has a lot of truth to it. Charlie Brewer missed a few passes in the first half of this ball game that he shouldn't have. Passes that you expect a 4-year starter to make, a guy that's on the top end of all of your statistics for career quarterbacks, and he didn't. There are still flashes where Charlie Brewer looks like a guy that hasn't played a lot of snaps of college football, almost as if he's not ready to be an elite Power 5 quarterback, and that's why I think he's not an elite Power 5 quarterback.
I don't think he has necessarily the skill set to become an elite Power 5.
Concurred.
The guy kind of player. But at the same time, he's your guy. He's the guy you got to roll with, and he's the guy that makes this system go. And Baylor needs to not ask him to be the guy that's going to be the elite Power 5 quarterback. They need to allow him to be the elite game manager, allow him to be what he is, which is a good athlete, throws a decent ball. But at the same time, you got to help him out by calling plays that are going to play to his strengths.
You got another text here.
How many times have I said?
Riverbend Liquor and Wine text line. This person's coming right at you. JD, why are you so convinced that Charlie Brewer is our guy? Is Charlie Brewer's arm strength less even this year than it was last year?
Wow, they did kind of come at me. Arm strength, that's tough to say. I don't think he has arm strength that is necessarily going to blow you out of the water, but at the same time, he doesn't lack arm strength to make any throws that this offense would ask him to make. I mean, it doesn't really matter at this point. They're just throwing the ball 5 yards to the sideline every other play. So I don't think arm strength is a problem. Why is Charlie my guy? Simple answer is track record. He was 10-game winner last year. He's been a starter for, 3-4 years now. He's got the most experience in that room. He's your guy, and you got to ride with him until there's a reason that is more looming in that quarterback room itself to make a convincing switch. And there isn't. And that answer is not Gray Bohannon, and it's not Jacob Zeno.
It's not a Charlie Brewer issue alone. This Riverbend Liquor Wine text line text says it's Fedora. If it's not working, they're getting paid the big bucks to make an adjustment. The storehouse is not empty. We have some cards to play. Sims, for instance, is a nice option and showed that today. Sims is one of those guys where you're on your fantasy football league. It's the middle of the year and you think, oh man, I need a tight end because George Kittle went down. Let's go get Sims. And he is just a workhorse for you right now. He's putting up some big numbers and looked really solid. And I'm glad Baylor's going to him more often, but I want to address the first end of that text and let you address the first end of that. It's Fedora. That right there, period. What are your thoughts go to when you read that?
It's Fedora. It makes me think that there is a question as to why we hired him. For this texter, not for me specifically.
Okay.
Fedora is a guy that has a track record that's been successful. I mean, you saw him turn Mitchell Trubisky into the number 2 pick in the NFL draft. So the guy knows football. The guy has a good football IQ. I think it really is, and I hate to say this because it's a cop-out. The guy really is just kind of playing with a shortened practice schedule, which is so hard to install when you step into a new team. Like, that is so difficult to do, and he's still trying to play catch-up from that perspective. And I think that's very much true that he has some blame in this disaster that we have so far this season, but at the same time, it is not Fedora. So I would say, no, it's not Fedora, but at the same time, yeah, I mean, he's got some blame.
It's the home stretch, the muscle-wise Baylor postgame show on SicEm365 radio. Call us, text us, 254-339-1122. Last chance to get in on the action. Craig, Squirrel Williams, 9 carries, 83 yards, 1 touchdown today. What a day from him. He broke out. Now it's a legitimate 3-headed running back system that you've got to aid Charlie Brewer, but are we using those guys correctly?
Gosh, that's a good question. I would say Craig Williams going forward, whether he's the starting back or not, needs to be a very much part of the mix. I mean, we saw the stuff with Ebner and Love this week, which wasn't phenomenal, but to have a guy like Williams that you can have step in and run for the amount of yards he did and have the production he did, that's crucial, man. To have 3 backs that can all legitimately play, you need to find ways to get them involved in the running game. I love that they can all catch the ball as well. We saw Ebner make a circus catch today on the sideline. I love that they can be involved in the passing game, but I mean, stick to the running game. You've got fresh legs. If you've got 3 backs, allow them to all get into a rhythm and allow them to get the lion's share of the carries and be what sets up that pass game for Charlie. Take some pressure off him.
If you're a college football fan, there are words that are oh so exciting, and that's Baylor, Iowa State, night game in Ames, Iowa. It's going to be a fun one next week. JD, you and I will be live for the SicEm365 postgame show on Saturday night. That will be a late one. As for today, though, Baylor falls down 30-0 against TCU in the first half. Final score, TCU 33, Baylor 23. The comeback comes up short late, and the Bears fall again, now 1-3 in the Dave Aranda era through 4 games this season. I'm Drake Toll alongside JD Piquel. This has been the Muscle Wise Baylor postgame show on SicEm365 Radio. Happy Halloween, everyone, and we'll see you again next week.